the king of Strength Coach Network, the returning prince of the Tokyo Olympics. There was something in the air tonight. The stars were bright. Fernando, brother,
Mate.
on.
Yeah, no worries. There was something in the air that night for sure. I don't know where it was, but we came out on top, so that's all that matters, really, isn't it?
So yeah, mate. For those that don't know, you're the head S&C for Argentina Rugby Sevens, and the boys just got a bronze at Tokyo. So, but you're now back in BA, right?
Yeah. So it took us, I don't know how many hours to get back, but we finally did. So I've honestly, after the last game, I've just lost track of time. So finally back home. Really missed the place.
How many days did you get in Tokyo after getting a medal?
So I think it was 4. The thing is, it's hard to explain, right? But the country now has a limited amount of people that can get in every day. And we're supposed to travel the day after. And a week before the comp, we found out the whole flight got cancelled. Yeah. We didn't tell the boys or anyone. It was just one of those times where you go, let's sort out the most important things now, and then we'll see how we return. And I'm not 100% sure, but winning a medal actually made it easy to come back, because the last flight, it was all the RG athletes that had finished competition, and it was just us on the plane. This is what they call like it's not a rescue flight, but the government did that with the people that couldn't get back home when the whole virus started. Yeah. So I'm assuming it was one of those. So 4 days after, we just got back home.
I'm surprised they didn't let you stay for like the closing ceremony.
I mean, what was the point? Like, after 17 or 18 months of this whole like Olympic period, I think everyone just wanted to go back home. Yeah. And with the COVID measures, everything was even hard. If you look at the opening ceremony, it was just for athletes, and you watch TV and start seeing the first countries going in, and the last countries were still jumping on the bus in the village. So really? The guys, yeah, you see the video of the RG guys just jumping around and everyone just going insane. I got texted from other S&Cs being like, you guys walking into the stadium was insane. So they jumped for 10 minutes and then they were just sitting on the ground for like an hour and a half, like on the floor. Some of them, I think some of them even fell asleep, like wearing the suits and stuff. Yeah. Because, yeah, after they went through the camera, they just like had them there until they could return. So, yeah, that was it.
Talk me through, you said it's like a 17, 18-month cycle. So obviously you're expecting to go to the Olympics last summer. When did you find out that you weren't going? And then, yeah, what the fuck did you do for a year and a half? Because obviously that's a big change.
Yeah, so the way it happened is we were at the 5th and 6th stage of the World Series. That's LA, Vancouver. And that was around February, right? So I remember reading about this hospital that was built in 10 days in China back in November because of this virus, and reading, bits and pieces all around. And I was always like asking the managers, like, what about the virus? Because the next stage is Hong Kong and Singapore, and that's where it's all breaking through.
Maybe a bronze medalist in rugby sevens, but you are a fucking gold medalist, world champion warrior.
Oh yeah. I'm up there. But I was right. Everyone was like, well, we haven't even heard about that. And when we flew to the States, I think back then it was like 50 something cases in the whole country. And no one was talking about anything. So we came back and everyone was like, oh, I'm just going to go home. And I'm like, I think I might stay with a friend because my mom is high risk. And at this point, we're talking about like beginning of 2020. So no one knows. I mean, no one's 100% certain right now. Imagine like 18 months ago. Yeah. So I was staying at a friend's house for like a week or so. And then until my girlfriend arrived from Vancouver, she was like, this is 3 months into the relationship. She's like, oh, you can stay at home until this gets sorted out. So we've been living together since. Anyway, so it was a day-by-day basis. So the first week I thought, we're going to have to stay at home, and then the boys are going to come out and train. So I just gave them a quick thing to train at home, like some body weight circuits. And then the next week it was like, oh, we might be there for like an extra week. So, let's see if we could get some material. And it all like evolved really quickly. So it was just a matter of changing and them giving me a list of space they had, materials they had at home, and then the manager working to get more stuff as we went. So I basically changed programs every week, but there was no north. So I was like, okay, the first objective was to keep them active, in the short term. What can I gain and what can we lose? And when we get back, we'll see. But the goal was moved every week, sometimes every day. So, then we found out the games are going to be cancelled. And then that was kind of a relief. I don't think we were doing great physically or game-wise in the last tournaments. It was the first preseason ever for sevens before that season.
Yeah.
And with all the learning curve that entitles, it definitely wasn't great. So it was sort of a blessing that this whole thing like stopped the world. And then when everyone got some decent materials, I thought if I had to start from zero, considering everyone as a rehab patient or as a rehab athlete, what would I do? So I definitely squeezed every single inch. Like all our first conditionings were off feet. Like we would do everything on a bike that would get the system sweating and actually being demanded, because some of them were closed in a terrace. Like one of our biggest forwards, he was in like a 5x5 terrace for like 4 months. So am I gonna give him like weird terrace shuttles or jumps or anything? So I was like, the conditioning is gonna come off feet, and then I'll do everything else, just sort of keeping the plyometric side of things. So we started like skipping rope and doing some landings and the most basic of sort of impact stuff we could do. And I literally went from square zero thinking, how many cycles of this can I do? How much can I progress? And I remember going all insane on the windows at home and writing like, okay, 15 months, if I want to finish with a French contrast and top speed, how do I go back from there? And I went through the most conservative way I could do so. We had no certainty when we could be running again. So it was a week by week, spending half an hour with each dude. It was 12 and a half hours of Zooms every week. Just taking time to see how they were doing, what they were doing. But we never trained online. I thought mentally that was the worst thing we could do. We would meet once a week or twice a week to do some mobility stuff. They usually had to go.
So you mean like you weren't watching them train?
No, I wasn't. I never watched them train. Like never, ever, not even one session. It was I don't know, something that came out naturally, and the coaches just sort of listened. It was like, what do you want to do? It was like, I don't see a point in not embracing what's happening.
Yeah.
Because some of the places I would see, especially like in the Argentinian academies, like, oh, let's keep them alive with routine, and when this finishes, they'll have to wake up early anyway. And I'm like, this is not what's happening. Like, if we are suffering because the goalposts have been moved, I cannot imagine the athletes, right? So you wake up every day thinking, what's it going to be? Am I going to make it on the list? How's selection going to be? Am I going to be able to play? I don't want to be the guy that says, okay, let's just pretend this isn't happening. And it was a massive learning moment for them, just to get some autonomy in their training. I mean, they're pretty diligent, but the way the program is based, we don't meet every week. Half of the team doesn't even live in BA. So there was a lot of education going around, and the boys responded. I mean, they're a great group. So we used the time to do something that we wouldn't do when the world started again. So it was half an hour twice a week of mobility, like feet, ankles, anything like precise that when the ball starts rolling, you don't have time for that. You don't have 30 minutes to do like specific joints, mobility and game range. And it was great. Like nowadays you just see them warm up and I have nothing to do or anything to say. They just do their own thing. And
Yeah.
And that's definitely the take home message from that period. And then and yeah, just I haven't stopped talking. Can you interrupt me, please?
So when did you get back to? I know it kind of like stopped and started, but when did you come back to training them in person, and what did that look like? Because obviously going from, like you said, being on a terrace to playing international rugby sevens, it's like that's even more intense than regular rugby in terms of running demands.
Yeah. So what happened is they were able to run before we start meeting. So politically, it is crazy. So I'll just make a brief description for people to understand. So BA has Buenos Aires, that is, the CBD and the rest of the province. That's the biggest state in Buenos Aires. So it's over 20 million people out of the 50 odd that's in the country. And the CBD and the rest of the state have two different governments. It's that big. And one of them was the opposition and one is the current government. So you could train in the one, but not train in the other. So our facilities in the one you couldn't train. So there was no way anyone was going to authorize us using our facilities, even though they're empty and it was actually enclosed by a wall. But the Olympic Center is within the area you could train. So we would drive with city access locked and just funneled. We would drive around an hour and a half or 2 hours every day for a ride that was usually 20 minutes. And we would go to this place that didn't have a field nor grass.
Am I making this up? But didn't you train on an underpass once?
Oh yeah, that was after. That was the good day. That was the good day. So this is the first stage. So the boys get this Olympic exception that they go out for a run. So they were running in the street and whatnot. So I just give them like this sort of. I actually found the caption the other day of what I did. So I started saying, okay, let's get some volume of feet as if they're doing rehab. So they started like jogging for a minute and walking for a minute for 20 minutes. That's the first thing they did. That was twice a week. And then speaking to all of them, like, how did you find it? Like, how's your back? How's your feet? That was fine. And then we progressed it like, I think 30 seconds for the jogging bit every week until they got like a 3-on-1. And then when they were fine, it was those 2 days plus some sort of tempo, some sort of building so they get some speed. And by the time we met,
Strength Coach Network. It's webinar number 17 on Strength Coach Network.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly where I got it from. So when we met, I think they had been running for like 8 weeks, but they're all like self-assessed running, and on their own, the pace they had is what they felt it was right. Just weird people running at weird times at night, so they wouldn't be seen by neighbors and stuff. So the first time we met, I was like, we're never gonna make it. They looked horrible. Like,
I remember you saying
they looked like they couldn't move. Like, they honestly looked awkward standing around other people, like socially.
Yeah.
So they usually comfortable being around 15 or 20 people, friends, athletes, and they were just like, I don't know, it was weird. It's the only word I can use to describe it. So they were moving weird, like athletes that haven't moved ever. And some of them were kind of like overweight, but muscle wise, because they had been moving weights, but not really running that much. They just looked stiff. I think that's the biggest word. Stiff in a bad way.
Most American collegiate and high school athletes.
Probably.
Yes.
And they all had like really weird haircuts as well. So the first thing I thought is like, we're never gonna get them back to what they were. There's no way I have enough time for that. But then everything was getting postponed and they were moving it. So that actually bought us a lot of time. And from that track and field, we sort of progressed to that underpass, which was like this sort of like abandoned state field that was in a triangle. One of the edges was a highway with trucks. The other one was a railway and the other bit I can't remember, something that really noisy. So it was just me wearing a face mask, and I think you've seen our uniforms. They're like bright light blue or whatever you want to call that. So truckers just honking. Oh, the other thing was an airport, the local airport. So it was between the trains, the trucks, and the airplanes that I was screaming like, "Skippy, walk back!" You know, like, and it was dog shit on the ground as well, and everything looked like one of those movies. Was it Hostel, where like everything is grey? I swear there was no sunlight in that space. Like every time we trained.
Was it winter for you? Because no, it's winter now, right?
Yeah, it was a couple of like I think a month before spring.
Yeah.
And the contact stuff, we did it in this hangar, this abandoned thing on the floor. And the boys were doing like, we found some dirty mats. I think if you tried to get something dirty, you wouldn't get it as dirty as it was. Like if you tried so. I think no one's ever touched them. So we're just doing like rolls and bear crawls and like whatnot without contact in those mats. And the boys are walking through this like sanitary gate that sprays everyone the same height. So the guys that they're almost 2 meters get sprayed on the neck. I get sprayed in the back of my head, and that's supposed to disinfect us. So it's all very bizarre. And then from that, we're not allowed to train, but the manager finds a private school where he used to go to school, and we get this school field, and we walk in there every day. And now we're progressing to like a more open space, and you know it looks more like people. It's more decent socially. Mm-hmm. And from there, we progressed to the actual training ground for the union. I think that was around October, November. And there was this tournament coming, this South American Sevens tournament. It was going to be our first competition. So we were kind of ready that. And up till then, we had no injuries whatsoever. And when contact started, it was running against the clock, right? So this is coaches in a nutshell. It was like, okay, we need to do 3 days of contact, and we haven't done contact yet, like whatsoever. Yeah, and we start getting our first niggle. So from comparing from our first 2 years, all our soft tissue injuries came in contact. That was since we started. It was 11 in 79 weeks, which wasn't bad. But I'm like, no, I'm playing with stats because we got them in a shorter period. But you know, the only one that was in contact, I think it was a guy that had surgery within the pandemic because he got his shoulder hurt right before it all started. So it was a late surgery. And they did a horrible job. He had to have like 3 surgeries, and we lost track of him running and back and forgot he missed the week. So we were back at like speed day, and he just like pulls hamstring. I'm like, oh yeah. It was very easy to get distracted because there were all these things happening at the same time that had nothing to do with sport. And as you may know, for most of the time, it was just myself running the program. I had an assistant for a lot of the last period, but within the pandemic, he had some personal issues like with father and hospital and stuff. And I was like, dude, just don't even think about showing up. Like, but it was easy to lose track of like some important things, of details, especially. But other than that, yeah, our injuries were great. And most of the time, as an S&C, I think the load and what we did could explain them. But then again, I also understood the urgency the coach had to get the team ready. We didn't have that much time. So he actually said to me, he's like, we just need to work our hardest. And we are the sort of team that would rather have 12 dudes that survive something than to take care of our like star players and make the big names get to the games. It was more a survival thing. I wasn't happy with that, but I could understand. And I also thought in my head there was a mid ground to that could have been better. But, you know, it just worked out the way it did. And I definitely had to pull some strings behind the stage for things to happen. But, you know.
So looking at when you came back, and then obviously the finish at the games, did you feel like you were building momentum throughout those whole like 7 to 9 months, or
Yeah.
really only at the games that you felt, oh, like now we're really playing well?
Well, that's the funny thing about the inter-department working. So I think a massive factor for success was the way we had build-up tournaments. So Argentina never gets competitions between the World Series. So what happens is we finish in whatever tournaments last. I think it's London or Paris, interchangeable. I don't know. And then we don't get any games until Dubai. So you're sort of like trying to practice something.
November, right?
Yeah, so you're trying to practice something, and the first game you have is South Africa. They just come up firing into your face. So you're definitely not ready. And in the way things happened, we had this tournament in December in South America. We lost against Brazil, but then it was 4 teams playing against each other, and then like playoffs. So we basically played everyone like 2 or 3 times.
Like local jiu-jitsu tournaments, you get people like fight each other 3 times.
Yeah, it was weird. And then the next tournament was in Madrid, and we had like more like international competition. So now you're getting the US coming out of lockdown, and Spain, which is a serious team, and you get Kenya, and you get Portugal, and this is a tougher competition. And Europeans haven't been locked down as we have, so physically it's harder. And the way the tournament was assembled is you played against everyone, and then you played, first place, second, third place, fourth. So in both tournaments, this is 2 weeks in a row. Our last day was the US and Kenya, and then Kenya in the final. So you played US, Kenya, Kenya, which was tough. And then we won that one as well. And then we go to Dubai, and now it's the same teams, plus you get France and Canada. So the level of the tournament sort of allow us to build and to try stuff and make mistakes and not get smashed straight away. And I think out of those 30-odd games, we just lost 2. I think we lost against France in the group stage for the second week in Dubai, and that Brazil game. And then we hadn't lost the game, which is great for confidence because the guys are trying stuff and they're making mistakes, and you actually have some time and space to react and breathe. So we're building up, and this is all like logistics and the committee paying and using money for us to prep. And then we finish in LA, right, where we go to Chula Vista and we play the US for tournaments. And then we actually play GB twice, the US twice, and Korea, which we have in the pool in the Olympic Games twice again. So in that, we get some epic games. Out of the 6, we just lose 1 against GB. But we're there. We can feel it, right? So you can feel that something is brewing. And I can only compare it sport-wise to what I felt in the Waratahs 2014, that team that won that Super Rugby just for the one time. I don't know how to describe it. You just feel it. Like even the guy who fills up the water is happy to fill up the water. And that says like sort of generates like a domino effect that's contagious. Like the boys were in a good spirit to do anything, and stuff was transparent. It wasn't easy, right? We had like our fights and our sparks, but it was face to face, and you could feel that was special because we hadn't felt that before. And it was all coming up together, like the way the comps were helping us build, the way things were working out. And by personal experience that I've told you things that I'm definitely not going to say in the video that were definitely not easy, and made me do things that in a good way, because it's going to sound bad, that I didn't think I was going to do before, like find different solutions. And I came to think of myself as a problem solver. Like, I need to get this done. How am I going to do it? Like, I used to be the guy that would probably sink with the Titanic and try 1,000 times and give everyone 1,000 opportunities. And I was like, well, we're running out of time and it's not going to work. So I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll work full
Don't tell
time
me about the pain of labor. Give me the fucking baby.
Yeah. So I mean, I cried like a kid when we won the medal, right? Like I was running down the stairs because we weren't even allowed to be on the bench
An emotional
I couldn't help thinking.
Argentina.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't help thinking, I couldn't help thinking about all the times that people that care about me were saying, like, it's not worth it. Like, the team's not up there. You haven't even played the Oceania teams. And this is not people saying, oh, you should give up, but
Yeah.
seeing me give up a lot of personal stuff and opportunities and, I don't know, money and different things. They were like, why are you doing this? Like, you have high chances of things not happening. I just felt like that I had to do it anyway. I had to finish it. Even if we hadn't won the medal, I don't think the way I felt about the process would change.
Yeah.
So we felt it brewing, and even with the games we had, dude, we have the toughest road of all the teams that made it anywhere. We played Australia, New Zealand in the group. Then we played South Africa with 6 men because we got a red card in like the second minute.
Yeah.
Then we played Fiji, and then we played GB. So the gold and the silver medal, and teams with history. And one of my friends were joking, it's like, you just had to play the dream team. That's the only game you had left.
Yeah.
And the teams around us, we were getting like little comments like, come on guys, you can do it. Like, even when we beat South Africa, Gaff was a member of the community. He was like, now you have to go all the way. Now you have to do it, like, for everyone.
Everyone's favorite second team is always Argentina.
Yeah, dude. Like, we were getting Ed Slatery, who's another guy from the membership, from the community who I met there in Ireland. He was like, everyone's just seemed happy for us, like, going into the games, and it was one of those teams that, I don't know, just makes everyone sort of emotional, because the guys were just giving it all, and it was insane. It was absolutely insane.
Let me ask you a technical question, because you can tell me the GPS, but you had boys at the Olympics hitting over 38 kilometers an hour, which I think is something like close to 11 meters a second, which
it is,
fucking fast for field sports.
For white
How
people.
are you managing training leading up to that, to the point where you've got boys running that fast at the Olympics?
Well, we start seeing some peaks in the weeks before. So this guy running 38.6 kilometers per hour, he ran a 37.9 against the wind in LA. So I knew he had it.
Okay.
Yeah. He was chasing, like, I think the GB scrum half made a break on the 22 meter line. They were on 22, and he just thought he was gone. And this guy chased 75 meters and just tackled him from behind, and he jackled that ball, and it was a penalty to Argentina. That was overtime, and we actually ended up winning that game. Yeah. So I knew it was there. So all I had to do was make the most to keep them fresh, and I knew that the numbers would come up. Like, he's the flashiest one, but I had other guys breaking 34 for the first time in 3 years.
Really?
Yeah. So it just the quickest guy gets all the flashes, but all the others sort of like raised the bar. Everyone got quicker, and it was a matter of, I just kept what we did to the bare minimum. Like,
really,
the gym stuff. Yeah, the gym stuff was all like I mentioned in the beginning, like the French contrast thing. And the way I did it before that is, instead of going the 4 exercises, I did it in pairs. And I was overemphasizing, guys, we need to move as quick as we can. And the volume was minimum, like bare minimum. And the guys were like using 10s on each side. And I was like, you can move quicker than that. And it was counterintuitive, because, the RGs, they would just go gym equals go as heavy as you can. And I was like, that's not quick enough. I need you to make that bar click. I need the sound, just based on feelings, or how you feel, not really feelings, but based on how you're feeling, how the battle is sounding. Just move as quick as you can. If you don't feel fresh before the next set, just don't go. And they thought it was a weird approach, but it worked. And on the field, I was just giving them like minimum stimulus, and the coach sort of moved all training sessions to game-like situations, and they were making the breaks there. So as you know, there's nothing that gets you more match fit than playing. So I was just making shorter warm-ups as well. So it's just taking as much volume as I could on anything like time on their feet. And I don't know. I don't think I have anything to prove it, but it worked. Like,
How
it was
many
just based on...
those exposures to top end speed? Are you trying to get all of them via the game and then top up, or are you actually doing dedicated stuff where, you know, a couple of times a week you say, right, you know, fly 10 or...
Yeah. So up until Dubai, I was using like this, like you said, just creating the opportunity for them to run. But then I started
via
looking
drill
closer.
selection?
Yeah.
Via drill selection?
Yeah. So we would have the coach knew, and everyone knew that the warm-ups on Tuesday, that's the second day of the week, they were a bit longer because there would be speed day. And I would take 15 minutes, between 15 and 18 minutes to warm them up on the field. They would have their special activation and mobility before the field. Like, you know, they all knew what to do, like their isometrics and their walks and their like cuff stuff and their hamstring stuff. And then slowly that we will build up that in the warm up, and then we will progress from, you know, the build ups to the builds and holds, and whatnot. And then back in the last stuff we sort of control was the 30 or 40 meter build ups, and they will get feedback. And sometimes I would tell them like, you'll have 3 and cut them in 2. Always give them less if they made it. Some of them made it like in the first run, trying to get over 90% every week. And it was a closer look I had to the numbers, where some of them didn't make it to 90 or over, but we had 88 and 89s and 87s. And I'm like, anecdotally, you want to be breaking 90 or 95, but the fact that you didn't do it the week before doesn't mean that at some point there's a break. Even when you're building speed, even when you're starting to train speed, there is a breaking point. So if you think about the first time you break 90, that has you very close. So even if you don't do it every week, that means you can still do it. Because some of our players will break the 90% probably like once a month. And that doesn't mean they're not ready for speed. That means they just need a game to chase someone 50 meters. And they're able to do it, which is different than if you have a dude that hasn't even gone close to 75, then I would doubt he's able to do it.
Yeah.
And if you have a dude that will have to do it multiple times a tournament, then I will be worried he's not doing it every week or at least every 15 days. So it was sort of a thing that I had to look close to and sort of see who I had to push and who I didn't have to push. But they're all getting it in games. So, dude, the quickest dude we have, that 38.6, he would break 37 every single week, at least once.
Damn. He's a young guy.
Yeah, he just turned 21. And I, as a nerd I am, I look back to all of our data on the way back from the plane, and other than the recovery weeks, which is the weeks we get after every tournament, which they don't do anything quick, and the weeks after, I think 80 or 85% of the weeks he's broken 35, and at least 12 to 13 weeks he's broken 37, multiple times a week. He's had tournaments in which he's done over 500 meters of zone 6. The closest dude coming to that is 200 and something. Shit. And the average is over 300 meters. So he runs quick all the time. He loves it. So his body's used to it. Like, he's built for speed. Like, if you see his body, I don't know if you've seen him close, but he's built like a cheetah, like narrow hips, like small head.
Not a big lifter?
No, he has like pretty much no like training age for weights. He's very like, we had him on front squats and the like goblet squats. And I think he's just now like a month before the game's progressed to back squat.
No.
Yeah, but he's strong. Like, you can tell. He just needs...
if he's only just graduated to back squats, how did you do your power cleans with him?
I think with him, there's a video he's just doing like pulls.
Yeah, you can't do plyometrics because he doesn't do a double bodyweight back squat.
Yeah. So I think at some point we did like some Olympic variations because I just need to use everything I could. before I took them where I wanted, and they're just doing like these they're all based on competency, right? So I was like, okay, how many of you have ever done such and such? And they showed me a couple of things, and the ones that were terrible would just do like loaded jumps. I think the most complicated lift he performed were high pulls, and like with 10 kilos each side, and he was horrible. I have a video for it. He was okay. Like, he was okay. What I was getting is like them focusing on the sort of like switch on, switch off, switch on sort of like thing of the Olympic lifting, and he was okay with that. He would just like drop, relax, and just sort of pull it, and it was fine. And all the others were using like the close grip snatches as well, and you could hear the bar click. And I remember at some point they got filmed and it was posted on the Instagram for sevens, and I got called so many things like a murderer, unprofessional, like letting my players lift like that.
Fuck those cunts.
Yeah, they were gonna get like killed and crippled, and no one did.
The week before the quarterfinal against Ireland in 2015, I did a podcast where we said, "Oh, we don't do mass. We do a bunch of cardio. We do sprints and blah blah blah." Someone's like, "Oh, well, I look forward to seeing some low intensity running from Argentina this weekend."
Oh, I know.
I was like, "Oh, there you go."
Mate,
you're talking
yeah, we did no mass whatsoever. Like one of the biggest challenges of the program was, what can I get that can be followed? So not too complicated and work. So we pretty much got a variation of the same conditioning weeks throughout. So day one was tempos. Day two was at some point some fartlek that TK's crazy about. And then we got some shuttles, some lacy, like broken broncos and shuttles, and then some change of direction. And all I did was look at the game and the recovery we had and the intensities we had, and I sort of tried to break the months for that. So if you talk about fartlek, I think you murdered that in a post here recently. Yeah. But what I got from that is, on the days that we're getting a lot of accelerations or short spaces from rugby training, I got some high speed running and some sort of like aerobic stimulus. Everything I gave them was polarized, right? So nothing. So they were either getting exposed to high speed or getting some aerobic stuff, like meters, like, tissue tolerance to running at some speed. And it wasn't very quick speed, but if you look at the games of sevens, that's sort of what they had. They had their time to walk, and they had a time to jog, and they had a time to just go crazy. Out of the 14 minutes, I think the real play time is between 4.5 and 5. So that's insane. And within that time, they could do 2.5 kilometers, and out of that, between 20 and 30 something percent is high speed. So we needed the volume, just to be able to tolerate that. And then there's another thing that is anecdotal, and I don't really know how to explain it, which is great, is if you look at GPS and numbers, a game day might have 7.5 kilometers and the same proportions I gave you out of speed, but they're not done in one session, nor 2 sessions. They're done in 3 sessions. Yeah. So replicating that in the training ground, it's really hard. So you can't do it exactly the same way, because if I had to make players go through 3 warm-ups a day, they would shoot me in the head.
Yeah.
We don't have the time and the logistics for that. That would imply like more hours, more food, mental like drainage, or whatever you want to include it. So I just made it pretty stable. So they would just make fun of it and say, "Oh, this is the warm-up. Oh, this is the conditioning. Oh, today's 3 sevens, right? Or 3 times 5. But they would know, and they would do it.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. So probably like show my program to everyone. I'll just be like, "Oh, this is too easy." It's like, well, it worked. And can't really deny the fact that I have some really good genetics in the athletes I coach. But that's where you understand, like, this is what they need. I'm not doing the most complicated, fancy stuff. No one's probably going to, put me on a pedestal. But going back to the first thing I said is you're a problem solver. It's like, what do we need? What makes you the better coach for the team you have is Could I work anywhere? Probably not. Could I work in a club around here and be told like I'm not good enough? Probably.
Yeah.
But I was a good suit for this team, and we came back with a medal. Whether you think there's a correlation, I don't know, but who cares?
So, I mean, obviously, I feel like for me, whenever you get to certain events like this, you're always forced to look back and reflect. I forget what year it was, but I remember when you'd gone back to Australia to do your masters. At how old?
Yeah.
35?
Yes, 30. Yeah, around that. Yeah.
So, like, for a guy that's already worked, like you said, for the Waratahs, won Super Rugby, you'd coach back in Argentina, and then you'd obviously helped us out with the World Cup prep in 2015. For you as a 35-year-old to go back to school and be fucking changing sheets in hotel rooms to make ends meet, that's obviously the dark days. Did you always have it in your mind like, oh, this is what you're working towards? Was there any doubt like you're gonna make it kind of thing?
Well, we've spoken extensively throughout this process, so you know how it goes. But may sound cliche, but it changed many times. Like what I was pursuing, I always remember when I got my visa to go study in Wales and how hard that process was.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I can do whatever I want. And back in the day, my goal was to be the best S&C coach in the world. And I think that's a really stupid thing. I just think it's funny now.
Because people should know as well that you started in marketing. So you did a full degree, you worked big business, and then you decided, fuck this.
Yeah, I was in the doors of an interview with Google back in Argentina because I was working for an advertising company and I was doing really well. But I didn't really like it. Like it was 5 p.m. every day and I would just be ready like 3-point support dash to just get out of the door. I never worked an extra minute, never wanted to. I never did anything outside work from working hours, which is completely opposite of what I did for the passion. I didn't really think I had passion. I was just a rugby player with many injuries that really loved sport, but never thought it was a thing. And there was a personal moment, a family loss that sort of made me appreciate life a bit more, of someone who really dedicated his life to work he didn't love, but passion of his free time to something he would have liked to pursue. It may sound like a cliche made up, but it is what it was. So being comfortable, earning money, being scouted by Google, I thought, I don't want to do this. So instinctively, I thought, so how am I going to come up with things I want to do? I'm just going to put myself in the most uncomfortable position ever. So I just quit my job. So I had no income and the urgency to think what was next. I had a couple of friends playing in Europe. So I thought, the guy who trains you, what does he do? Sports science. What is that? This is the year 2010. Just Google it. And a couple of programs. Now you just get flooded. If you Google sports science, you get flooded by programs and the best university and the pathway and I don't know, bullshit. So a couple of places came up, and this is pre-Kia time, so I don't really have any guidance around there. And I do all these applications, just go from Stellenbosch to the US to New Zealand, Australia, and I don't have money to do any of that. And Wales is my 8th option. Seriously, my 8th option. And I'm like, I don't even know it. Yeah, I don't even know what that is, but I used to speak like that before I turned into Fernando, and then just waking up every day thinking, where am I going to live? The whole focus, just to get back to your question, is based on the end goal, like being in a team, winning something, getting your first kit. And that's dumb, but it's where you start. And as you go, and moreover, all my Wales path was very successful. Like I was top of my class, got the internships, got this. It was all like I was aiming for everything. I was getting everything. Yeah. But when the real focus changed is when I started getting the slaps in the face. Like go to Wales, go back to Argentina. So I didn't get any job offers or opportunities, being the hardest undergraduate hardest working undergraduate in the whole UK by far. I pretty much emailed like and got replies from every single team on the Premiership because I had connections and blah. But I was like, an undergrad with like CSCS, like who cares? Like you're the same as the next guy.
Yeah.
And then get that connection to go to Australia with that bag on my back, just showing up to the Waratahs and someone saying, hey, you can come in. Yeah, you're good enough. Stay for a year, win the Super Rugby. That's all, that's all race. And from there, I got to Sparta thinking, well, now I'm going to make the break. The break is coming. The break is coming. I'm going to be successful, blah, blah, blah. And I get to wash towels and get told I'm not good enough to coach high school kids in America every single day. And by now it's been almost 4 years that I haven't been at home, and my self-worth is just, I think I've dug a hole to get a new low. And, someone tells me that probably the best thing that can happen to me is the worst thing that can happen to me, and that's fail. Because then next day you wake up and you're still there.
Yeah.
And then Helping You with Pumas comes up, and the Super Rugby franchise was being set up, and you didn't get the job because they thought that you had taught them everything they knew. And coming up 16th out of 18th the next year with 55 injuries show them you haven't. And I get told that the most important job in the union is the back of the line. And I get another slap, and I get another slap. And at that point, I don't care, but I'm still charging, I'm still charging. And I go to Australia, like use all the money I've saved, get myself into debt, get a master's, even though I know it's not what I want, but it's going to get me my break, just basically live in Australia. And then if I'm there, I'm thinking my passport was what gets me out of jobs, because no one wants to pay to see how good I am. And the focus is still on the outside. It comes back in, but it's still on the outside. And of course, that, as you know, I failed terribly before I know it. Every time I lay a sheet in the motel, making a bed next day, I'm thinking, what am I doing? Like every single one of my choices is focused towards getting a job, not being a good coach, getting that validation of someone else saying, hey, you're good enough. And from the inside that the badge doesn't give it to you, but I'm stubborn. And I really need some like mud dragging and whatnot to prove it. And I'm thinking, I am alone. I am bankrupt because I had 17 cents in my bank account with a $10,000 debt on top. And I'm not coaching. I'm far away from my family and friends. And I'm thinking, well, this is definitely not the result of good choices. So all I do while being in touch with Alex Ross is I'll just go back home. And there was opportunities coming up in the rugby union in Argentina. And I thought, well, it's time to come home. And when I walk into this 7th interview, dude, I'm at peace. Like, I don't care if I get it or not. Like, seriously, like, it's where you get beyond adrenaline. It's just that, I don't know how to call it. Like, it's like floating in space.
My first internship, thankfully my only internship at Wasps. But when I did that interview at Wasps, I was just so bored of failing that I didn't give a fuck. And that's the one I got.
That's how it feels.
My latest interview.
Yeah.
That's how I felt like walking into. It was like I've already been ahead, already been fired. I have at this point zero really to lose. Am I at the bottom? It's not even desperation. It's just a fully like, fuck it, let's see what happens.
Yeah. It's what both of you said. It's just like I got bored of failure and I have nothing else to lose. I was like, it's fine. So I walk in, and the one thing I have, which probably makes me terrible for job interviews, is I don't walk in to get the job. I walk in to say, well, this is what you're going to get. And if you don't want it, just let me know now, because I don't want to be acting for 3 years. And I was sort of like halfway through it. And at some point you understand that you have to compromise, because you can't be like, oh, this is who I am. Like, take it or leave it, give some sass to people. But I was just as honest as I thought I could be. And this was my first big job. So my next interview will be different if I ever have one. But I came out of that interview, and half an hour later, the manager texted me being like, you look like someone that has his shit together and like you like to be, organized. So this is the potential schedule for the season, just in case you need to organize your life. And you know, the rest is history. You know, it is what it is. I don't even remember what the question was, but
no, you asked it perfectly. One more question though. If you had to pick an online platform for programming and distributing training to athletes, what would it be?
It'll definitely be Strength Coach Network.
No, it's fucking Team Builder, Fernando. Fuck. Fucking hell. Pay respect to the sponsors. Right. Out it.
Oh, definitely Team Builder for sure.